Welcome to the Read to Achieve narrated PowerPoint presentation. This presentation is geared towards school-based leaders and staff. The goal of this presentation is to provide clarity to the processes for implementation for Read to Achieve and hopefully answer a majority of your questions. Please note that this is the first year of implementation and there are still some processes and procedures being developed at the state and local level. I'll try to highlight these situations throughout the presentation. However, please note that there may be changes in the near future to the processes and procedures we discussed today. My name is Dr. Mark Tracy, and I am the Senior Area Facilitator for Elementary Education here in Durham Public Schools. I have been tasked with leading the district in the implementation of Read to Achieve. I'm here to support schools in responding to questions and helping with coordinating resources at the central level for schools as it relates to Read to Achieve. Read to Achieve is a part of the Excellent Public Schools Act. For some historical knowledge, I will briefly discuss how Read to Achieve became law. In the summer of 2012, the state of North Carolina passed a new Budget Act. A part of that act was the Read to Achieve law. Read to Achieve has 7 major components. Much of today's presentation will be breaking down these 7 components. This law became active at the onset of the 2013-14 school year. What is significant about this school reform is that it truly reduces the school and district's ability to override parts of the law. However, the law does allow Durham Public Schools the freedom and flexibility to implement the law as it sees fit, as long as it falls within the tenets of the law. We will discuss this in greater detail throughout the presentation. What is critical to implementation is to know that you are all a part of this process, and for effective implementation, we all have to work together. We will now discuss the 7 different components within the Read to Achieve law. The first component is the Comprehensive Plan for Reading Achievement. DPI is requiring all districts in the state to develop their own comprehensive reading plan. This plan is more comprehensive than the current reading blueprint that is on Depot. This is a K-12 plan that provides specific expectations for a variety of key stakeholders in the district. The plan must have research-based best practices as the driving force for instruction, and it must use the Common Core standards. DPI has generated a state comprehensive reading plan, and Durham Public Schools will use that to guide the process. As you can see in the table of contents for the state plan, there are sections for the state, district, school administrators, and teachers. But within each of these sections, there are the same categories. One hopes this will create consistency between the different levels within the district and state. Also, please note that the plan goes beyond just instruction and coordinates professional development, how volunteers and community can help in literacy instruction, assessments, leadership, and standards. The district is currently working on the plan. As leaders in the building, you may be tapped to help support in the development. Once finished, Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment, CIA, will roll the plan out to the schools. Component 2 of the Read to Achieve law is the Kindergarten Entry Assessment. The Kindergarten Entry Assessment is the only component that does not start this year. It will not start until the fall of the 2014-15 school year. There will be 5 essential domains tested for entering kindergarten students. Those domains are language and literacy, cognition and general knowledge, approaches to learning, physical well-being and motor development, and social and emotional development. This is still being developed at the state level, so we do not have a clear amount of information pertaining to the test. However, in looking at the categories, it is clear that Durham Public Schools already does a majority of these assessments for entering K students. So we do not see a significant change in the entry assessment process for our teachers and schools. Component 3 is facilitating early grade reading proficiency. What this really is discussing is the M-Class Reading 3D, and in particular the Dibbles Next and TRC assessments. As you should be aware, M-Class Reading 3D is a formative and diagnostic assessment. It is not intended for grading purposes, but its goal is to provide teachers with critical data on a student's strengths and areas of growth so that the teacher can identify the root causes to the issues so that they can provide corrective instruction to support the individual student. M-Class consists of two different assessments, Dibbles Next and the TRC. Please note that progress monitoring of students between benchmarks is now part of the law. Please refer to the progress monitoring calendar on Depot for further questions. The expectation is that the school at the PLC level and teachers at the classroom level are using the data from M-Class to make informed instructional decisions when planning and delivering instruction. The district is expecting after the 3 benchmarks during the school year, parents are informed of their child's progress utilizing the Home Connect letters. Please contact your instructional facilitator at the school level or your principal if you have any questions on how to print out and or obtain a Home Connect letter for any of your students on your roster. Component 4 is the elimination of social promotion. This is one of the more complicated processes within the law as there are many different options and choices. The goal behind this law is to have all exiting 3rd grade students proficient in the area of reading by the end of their 3rd grade year. Students will be retained in 3rd grade if they do not meet the standards for promotion set by the state. These standards are not flexible, thus a teacher and or principal cannot override this process. Please note that Read to Achieve only pertains to reading proficiency. If a student is proficient based on Read to Achieve, they can still be retained on other factors as it relates to their academic performance in other subject areas or their behavior. If a student is proficient based on Read to Achieve, but will be retained due to other reasons, the retention process would follow any other grade level within your school, as long as it fits within Durham Public School policy. There are good cause exemptions that allow certain students to be exempt from the Read to Achieve regulations. As I alluded to previously, there are multiple good cause exemptions. The first good cause exemption would be students who have limited English proficiency. These are students who receive less than 2 years of English as a second language instruction. The second good cause option are students with an IEP. However, students with an IEP must be taking the Extend 1 in the area of reading to be eligible for a good cause exemption. All other IEP students must fall within the Read to Achieve law. Students who have been retained more than once, meaning retained 2 or more times during their kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, or 3rd grade year, would also be exempt from Read to Achieve. Students passing the Read to Achieve test after taking the end of grade test and or attending summer reading camp, and students through the reading portfolio can also be exempt from Read to Achieve. We will talk in much greater detail about the Read to Achieve assessment, summer reading camp, and the reading portfolio. Students who do not pass the end of grade test in reading will be given the chance to take a retest of the end of grade test. If they do not pass the end of grade test a second time, they can take the Read to Achieve alternative assessment. As I discussed earlier, there are some parts of this process that are not complete. One of these is the Read to Achieve assessment. The state is still working on the assessment. What we have been told is that it is similar to the end of grade test with reading passages and multiple choice responses, but that there is more text embedded answers. Students will have a couple of chances to take this assessment, once at the end of the third grade and the other after summer reading camp. We will discuss the summer reading camp in greater detail later in this presentation. The reading portfolio is another good cause exemption for students to show proficiency in their area of reading. The process allows a student a chance to show proficiency over an extended period of time, and it is not based on a one-day test, unlike the end of grade test or the Read to Achieve alternative assessment. M-Class and other data is used to determine who is at risk of failing the EOG. This process is not for students on or above grade level in the area of reading. The process does not start until January to allow you as teachers the time to provide instruction in the area of reading and provide interventions to meet the needs of the students. Please note that this process is consistent across not only the district but throughout the state of North Carolina. The reading portfolio is based on the 12 standards in reading for the third grade. Students will be given a secured reading passage with 5 questions. Students must answer 4 out of 5 questions correctly to show proficiency on that passage. Students must show proficiency on 3 passages per standard, which means that they must show proficiency on 36 separate reading passages overall. There are 10 different passages per standard to allow students a multitude of chances to pass each standard. Students can only be given a total of 3 different passages per week. When the students receive the passages, it must be a cold read, meaning they cannot preview the passage or do the same passage twice. This is an independent process, so no teacher or peer support is allowed. It is an untimed process for all students, and students with an IEP 504 plan or an LEP plan would be provided the accommodations they normally would get during testing. The process must occur at the school, but can be taken during a typical classroom lesson or day. Therefore, during normal literacy instruction, a student can take the assessment individually. Therefore, no need to stop the typical instruction going on during the day. The teacher determines when the assessment will be given, but it should match the standards being taught in the classroom. The assessment should be given based on student need, so the sequence may vary for each student and each classroom. Here is an example of the score sheet a teacher would complete on the individual student. As you can see, this is for a fictitious student named John. As you can see, for Standard 1, John over a period of time has taken the assessment 5 times. Overall, he is considered mastered for this standard because he passed the assessment 3 times by getting scores of at least 4 out of the 5 questions correct. Please note that the first 2 times John attempted this assessment, he did not pass it by scoring 2s and 3s. Please note the expectation is that in between each time that an assessment is provided, the teacher will go back and provide instruction and support to the individual student. Please note that for Standard 2, John also passed with a score of 3, and you only have to give it 3 times if they get all 3 correct. However, he passed the first, did not pass the second, and passed the next 2. However, on Standard 3, John has not mastered the standard, as he has only got one assessment correct. However, he still has 4 more opportunities to pass the assessment.